My girlfriend snapped. You don't think before you act. You're embarrassing me. When I surprised her with flowers at work. But then her coworker showed me her post from last year, and everything changed. The florist shop smelled overwhelmingly of roses, a scent that usually filled me with a sense of hopeful anticipation. Today, however, it felt like a mocking reminder of my misjudgment. I clutched the bouquet of lilies and sunflowers, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the gray cloud that had settled over my mood. Beautiful choice, sir. The florist chirped, oblivious to my internal turmoil. She'll love them. I managed a weak smile. I hope so. Just an hour ago, I had been buzzing with excitement. Sarah had been working incredibly hard lately, pulling long hours at the law firm. I wanted to do something to brighten her day, to remind her that I was thinking of her. A surprise delivery of her favorite flowers seemed like the perfect gesture. Now, standing outside the imposing glass doors of the firm, I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. Sarah's words echoed in my head. You don't think before you act. You're embarrassing me. The scene replayed itself with painful clarity. I had walked into the reception area, beaming, the bouquet held high. The receptionist, a friendly woman named Emily, had greeted me warmly and offered to call Sarah. But before she could, Sarah had emerged from a nearby office, her face a mask of barely suppressed irritation. What is this, Mark? She had hissed, pulling me into an empty conference room. My smile faltered. I just wanted to surprise you. You've been so stressed. Surprise me? By showing up here, in front of my colleagues, with a ridiculous bouquet of flowers? Her voice was sharp, laced with an anger I didn't understand. You don't think, Mark. You just do. It's embarrassing. She had snatched the flowers from my hands, her fingers digging into the delicate petals. Take these home, she'd said, her voice trembling slightly. And please, next time, consider the consequences of your actions. Humiliated and confused, I had retreated, the joyful surprise I had planned dissolving into a bitter residue of hurt and rejection. I almost turned around, ready to throw the lilies and sunflowers into the nearest trash can and drive home to lick my wounds. But something stopped me. A flicker of stubbornness, perhaps, or a desperate need to understand. I had to know why a gesture of love had been met with such coldness. Taking a deep breath, I walked into the reception area. Emily looked up, her expression sympathetic. Everything all right, Mark? She asked softly. Not really, I admitted. Sarah seemed upset. Emily hesitated, then leaned forward conspiratorially. She's been under a lot of pressure lately. Big case, partners breathing down her neck. But that's no excuse for being rude. I just don't get it, I said, shaking my head. It felt like she was ashamed of me. Emily frowned. That doesn't sound like Sarah. She's usually so proud. She paused, then a mischievous glint appeared in her eyes. You know what? Let me show you something. Wait here. She disappeared into a back office, returning a few moments later with her phone. She tapped the screen, then held it out to me. This was posted on her private social media account last year, she said. I thought you might find it interesting. The image on the screen showed Sarah, beaming, holding a much larger bouquet of flowers, roses, I think, standing in the exact same reception area. The caption read, Best boyfriend ever. So touched that Mark surprised me at work. Feeling so loved and appreciated. Hashtag best boyfriend, hashtag flowers at work, hashtag lucky girl. My heart lurched. The contrast between the picture and Sarah's reaction today was staggering. What had changed? What had happened in the last year to make her so ashamed of a gesture she had once celebrated? Thank you, Emily, I said, my voice tight. You've given me a lot to think about. I walked out of the building, the flowers suddenly feeling heavier than ever. As I drove home, my mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle. Had I done something to offend her? Had her feelings for me changed? Was she going through something I didn't know about? The Sarah I knew, or thought I knew, was kind, compassionate, and appreciative. She was the woman who had nursed me through a bout of the flu, who had celebrated my small victories with genuine enthusiasm, who had held my hand during my grandfather's funeral. The woman who had snapped at me today felt like a stranger. When I got home, I didn't put the flowers in water. I left them on the kitchen counter, a silent, accusing testament to the chasm that seemed to have opened up between us. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down at the table, staring at the bouquet. Hours passed. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room. I replayed every conversation, every interaction we'd had in the past few weeks, searching for clues, for any indication that something was wrong. But I found nothing. Finally, as darkness descended, I picked up my phone and dialed Sarah's number. It went straight to voicemail. I left a message, my voice trembling slightly. "Sarah, I don't understand what's going on. I'm sorry if I embarrassed you. I just wanted to make you happy. Please call me when you get a chance. I love you." I hung up, feeling a profound sense of loneliness. The silence in the apartment was deafening. I went to bed, but sleep eluded me. My mind was a whirlwind of questions and anxieties. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing. It was Sarah. "Mark," she said, her voice sounding tired. "I'm so sorry about yesterday. I was awful." Relief washed over me, so potent it almost brought me to my knees. "What happened?" I asked. "Why did you react like that?" She hesitated. "Can we talk about it later? I'm swamped at work." "Please." "Sarah," I pleaded. "I need to understand." She sighed. "Okay, meet me for lunch at that little Italian place we like." "I'll be there," I said, my heart filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The Italian restaurant was bustling with lunchtime activity. The aroma of garlic and oregano hung in the air, but I barely noticed. I sat at our usual table, nervously tapping my fingers on the checkered tablecloth, waiting for Sarah. She arrived 10 minutes late, her face pale and drawn. She slid into the seat opposite me and avoided my gaze. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What's going on, Sarah?" I asked gently. "You've been acting so strange lately." She took a deep breath. "It's complicated." "Tell me," I urged. "I can't help you if you don't tell me." She finally looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and fear. "I'm up for partner," she said. The words hung in the air, seemingly innocuous. But I sensed there was more to it than that. "Congratulations," I said cautiously. "That's amazing." "It should be," she said, her voice bitter. "But it's not. The partners, they have a certain image they want to project. A certain lifestyle." "What do you mean?" I asked, my brow furrowing. "They want someone who is polished, sophisticated, someone who fits in with their world. And you don't." She shook her head. "Not really. I'm me. I like comfortable jeans and hiking boots. I like spending weekends at the lake. I don't play golf or go to fancy galas." "But you're brilliant, Sarah," I protested. "You're the best lawyer I know." "That doesn't matter," she said, her voice laced with despair. "What matters is appearances. And they don't think you fit the image either." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What are you saying?" "They think you're too ordinary," she stammered. "They think you're not ambitious enough. They think you'll hold me back." I stared at her, speechless, as the pieces of the puzzle finally clicked into place. The embarrassment, the anger, the desire to distance herself from me. It all made sense now. She wasn't ashamed of me, not exactly. She was afraid of what her colleagues thought, afraid that my presence in her life would jeopardize her career. "So, you're saying that to become a partner, you have to pretend to be someone you're not?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger. "It's not that simple," she said, her eyes pleading. "It's about fitting in, about playing the game. It's about doing what you have to do to succeed." "And what about us, Sarah?" I asked, my voice rising. "What about our relationship? Are you willing to sacrifice that for a partnership?" She didn't answer. She couldn't answer. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "I need some air," I said, turning and walking out of the restaurant. I walked aimlessly through the streets, my mind reeling. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. The woman I loved was willing to change everything about herself, to deny who she was, to sacrifice our relationship for the sake of a job. I found myself in a park, sitting on a bench beneath a sprawling oak tree. I watched as children played, their laughter echoing in the air. Their innocence and joy were a stark contrast to the turmoil in my heart. Was I being unfair to Sarah? Was I being selfish? Should I be more supportive of her ambitions, even if it meant sacrificing my own happiness? I thought about our relationship. We had been together for 5 years. We had shared so many wonderful moments: laughter, tears, adventures, quiet evenings spent curled up on the couch. We had built a life together, a life based on honesty, trust, and mutual respect. But now, that foundation seemed to be crumbling. Sarah was changing, becoming someone I didn't recognize. And I didn't know if I could accept it. I spent the rest of the day in the park, lost in my thoughts. As darkness fell, I made a decision. I knew what I had to do. I went back to my apartment, packed a bag, and wrote Sarah a letter. I didn't tell her that I was leaving. I just told her that I needed some time to think, to figure out what I wanted. I told her that I loved her, but that I couldn't be with someone who wasn't true to themselves. I left the letter on the kitchen table, next to the wilting bouquet of lilies and sunflowers. Then, I walked out the door, not knowing where I was going, but knowing that I couldn't stay. I drove north, away from the city, away from Sarah, away from the life I had known. I ended up in a small cabin in the mountains, surrounded by towering pine trees and snow-capped peaks. The silence was deafening, but it was a welcome change from the constant noise and pressure of the city. I spent my days hiking, reading, and writing in my journal. I thought a lot about Sarah, about our relationship, about my own life. I realized that I had been so focused on making her happy that I had neglected my own needs and desires. I had always been a people pleaser, someone who put others' needs before my own. I had always tried to be the perfect boyfriend, the perfect friend, the perfect son. But in doing so, I had lost sight of who I was. I decided that it was time to reclaim my own life, to rediscover my passions, to find my own happiness. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I had always loved art, but I had put it aside to pursue a more practical career. Now, I found myself spending hours in front of the easel, lost in the world of color and texture. I also started volunteering at a local animal shelter. I had always loved animals, and it felt good to be doing something to help them. Slowly but surely, I began to heal. The pain of losing Sarah didn't disappear entirely, but it lessened. I started to feel like myself again, maybe even a better version of myself. One day, about a month after I had left, I received a letter from Sarah. She wrote that she had read my letter and that she understood why I had left. She said that she had been doing a lot of soul-searching and that she had realized that she had made a mistake. She had turned down the partnership, she wrote. She had decided that her happiness was more important than her career. She had realized that she couldn't be with someone who didn't accept her for who she was. She asked if I would be willing to give our relationship another chance. I read the letter over and over again, tears streaming down my face. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to rush back to her, to forgive her, to start over. But another part of me was afraid. Afraid that she would change her mind. Afraid that she would revert to her old ways. Afraid that I would get hurt again. I decided to write her back, telling her that I needed more time. I told her that I was glad she had made the right decision, but that I needed to be sure that she was truly committed to being herself. We continued to exchange letters over the next few months. We talked about everything, our hopes, our fears, our dreams. We were honest and vulnerable with each other in a way that we had never been before. Slowly, my trust in her began to return. I started to believe that she had truly changed, that she had learned from her mistakes. One day, I received a letter from her inviting me to visit her in the city. She said that she had a surprise for me. I hesitated, but then I decided to go. I knew that I couldn't stay away from her forever. When I arrived at her apartment, she greeted me with a warm hug and a kiss. She looked different, somehow. More relaxed, more authentic. "I have something to show you," she said, leading me into her living room. There, on the wall, hung one of my paintings. It was a landscape I had painted in the mountains, a scene of towering pine trees and snow-capped peaks. "I bought it from a local gallery," she said. "I wanted to have a piece of you with me, always." I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. "I love you, Mark," she said, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry for everything I put you through. I promise I'll never try to change you again. I promise to always be true to myself. Please, give me another chance." I looked at her, at the painting, at the life we had built together. I knew that I loved her, and that I couldn't imagine my life without her. "Yes, Sarah," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "I'll give you another chance." We embraced, our tears mingling. It was a new beginning, a chance to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of honesty, trust, and love. It wasn't easy. We had to work hard to overcome the damage that had been done. We had to learn to communicate better, to listen to each other, to support each other's dreams. But we did it. We emerged from the crisis stronger and more resilient than ever before. Sarah found a new job at a smaller law firm, one that valued her for her talent and her integrity, not for her connections or her appearance. She was happier than she had ever been. I continued to paint and volunteer at the animal shelter. I found fulfillment in pursuing my passions and in making a difference in the world. We learned that true happiness comes from being true to ourselves and from loving and accepting each other for who we are. A year later, we got married in the mountains, surrounded by our family and friends. It was a small, intimate ceremony, filled with love and laughter. As we stood at the altar, exchanging our vows, I knew that I had made the right decision. I had found my soulmate, someone who loved me for who I was, flaws and all. And I knew that no matter what challenges life threw our way, we would face them together with honesty, trust, and unwavering love. Our journey had been difficult, but it had led us to a place of profound happiness and contentment. And that, I realized, was all that truly mattered. The flowers, the job titles, the opinions of others, none of it mattered as much as the love we shared.